One of the most powerful things about a network, in fact the main purpose of a network, is that people can share resources on a network. And so if you want a network act so that people can share the database, it's a rather simple thing to do as long as you have a network drive where you can install ACT. In other words, if you have a network already set up and you install the database so that the users can share the database, then there's just a couple more steps to make sure that the database itself is shared and to make sure that the users that you have decided are going to use the network ACT will actually find the network ACT. So in this section we'll just talk about a couple of settings. Now you need to keep in mind that if you want to have the fully networked version of ACT, that would be the premium edition. You need to have the premium edition and have some additional licenses. But that being the case, then it's easy to set up ACT for networking. The first thing that we want to do is make sure that the database is shared. So what we're going to do is go up to the toolbar and click on Tools, and then come down to Database Maintenance, and then over to Share Database. We're going to click on Share Database, and notice then the system says when you share your database, the files associated with the database are accessible to users on your network, and then you're going to choose OK. Now what this does is it sets the Windows Explorer settings for the shares, or it sets the shares on the Windows Explorer settings for the database, but it also sets them for all of the templates and for all of the other pieces that ACT needs to have in order to function properly. So I would highly recommend using this option of sharing the database rather than going into the Windows Explorer tools and just finding your ACT database and saying I just want to share that. If you've ever looked at those share permissions, they can be confusing, especially if you have a multi-folder hierarchy. So this takes that confusion away. So now we've got the database shared so that users can use it. Well, now what we want to do is on each of the user's computer that is going to connect to the shared database, we want to change their preferences. And so what we're going to do is click on Tools in their computer. So let's pretend now that we are in their computer and we want to make sure that it can get to the shared database that is on the network. In other words, we did the first step on the network share. Now this step we're doing on each of the user's computer. So again we're going to click on Tools in the menu bar, and this time we're going to come down to Preferences. And on Preferences, notice that it asks where are the files? Where's this database that I'm supposed to hit? And this is where we will browse. We'll click on Browse and we'll browse out through the network and find that shared folder. Once we point to that shared folder, then that setting will be held in the user's settings, so that every time that they open ACT, it will access the network to access the shared database. And again, you have to have the right version of ACT. You have to have the premium version, because if you can have multiple users using the same one, you have to have multiple licenses. And it'd be better to have the premium version with the other options anyway, because if you have multiple users using the same one, you probably want to have some type of an automatic backup, some of the other features that the premium version has. But it's just that simple to allow the system to set up multi-user databases. So it's important to be able to work with the users. It's also important to be able to keep the data clean, keep the data right for the users, and to be able to look at that. So in our next section we'll take a look at cleaning up your data. That's next.